Okay, so we take 3 questions and then you will respond. We have about 20 minutes or so for discussion. Yeah, 20 minutes enough. Okay, please.
Thank you. My name is Charles Boni. I'm working with the Eco. First, I congratulate you, Prof, for very good presentation. I just request you if you can comment on we have a problem of Kilimanjaro now is burning. What can be your recommendation, our mountain, to the community? That's one. Another is I appreciate the way you were talking of the fertilizer, and maybe this is a take that we need to use the seeds, I mean the legumes as fertilizers. I wish we can push much, and the universities and everybody can push this. Thank you very much. I think this can also be taken to now the Ministry of Agriculture. Some of the syllabus are under review. I think this is a good component to take. Santi.
Thank you. My name is Upendo, a student here at Nelson Mandela. Okay. Thank you, Professor. We have taken us we should not eradicate these disease-bearing agents like pathogens such as bacteria and fungi and weed. Because we should say we should not, we have to reduce the proliferation and damages. But my question is, I'm dealing with pests. How should I do this?
My name is James Kahurananga. At the moment, African governments are spending a lot of effort in promoting agricultural production through fertilizers and all sorts of inputs. And the donor agencies or donor countries are providing a lot of money and fertilizers and so on. So the emphasis is moving away completely from local agro-ecological farming systems. So what can we do? Because they say we must promote food production for the increasing population.
I think we have 3 questions already. Can we let him respond to the 3 questions before we go to the next round? Thank you very much.
All right, yes, thank you. The first fire in Kilimanjaro, I don't know exactly the problem. It's my first day here in Tanzania, and I didn't go to the Kilimanjaro. I can imagine fire is caused, maybe, I don't know exactly, maybe by pastoralists, but I'm not sure. But it's true that in some regions where pastoralists with savanna, no? So it's not forest, but ecosystem like savanna is sensitive to fire. I don't know. In other countries, I know situations where it's very difficult between crop farmers and pastoralists in order to preserve the agro-ecosystem. Some farmers or crop farmers practice we say shifting agriculture with fire in the forest. But of course, it may be very, very dangerous for the savanna and for the pastoralists. But I'm sorry, in Kilimanjaro, I don't know exactly the situation. The variety, we have to promote some varieties of crops, of course. I think with different criteria. First, tolerance or resistance to pest and disease in order to reduce the proliferation of pest of disease. So we have to choose new varieties, more tolerant, more resistant to this pest and disease. And of course, we have to promote association of crops in the same plots to reduce their proliferation. Adapted with fertilizers, it's true that the high-yielding varieties require a lot of fertilizers. I think if we want to avoid this use of synthetic fertilizers, we have to fertilize with other ways. Of course, leguminous for nitrogen, agroforestry, and mycorrhizal fungi for other animal mineral elements. And of course, humus hold mineral, not only water, but humus is able to roll mineral elements to give these mineral elements to the crops. So humus combination animal raising system with farming systems, mycorrhizal fungi in order to get from the parent rocks too, and of course leguminous. We know leguminous, all that. But yes, technical alternative. Now, how can we do to move away completely our farming system? Not only in Tanzania, but in many countries, governments have been promoting fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers, and pesticides. And in many countries, it's a mistake. In France and Belgium, in Europe, I think, for example, the main problem is not increase the yield per hectare with a very high cost, monetary cost, and hidden cost. The problem is to increase the value added per hectare. That means the products of the yield with the price, and we have to subtract, of course, the cost. Our productive agriculture in Europe is very destructive. We have been destructing fossil fuels, fertilizers, pesticides, and so on. So we have to take into account the value added and not so the yield per hectare. Of course, in some countries with deficit in food, we have to promote new farming system able to increase both yield per hectare, also availability of food, food sovereignty, less dependency of importation from other countries. So obvious, we have to increase yield and value added. So increase yield per hectare, reducing cost without destroying any inputs, for example. After that, agroecology as a scientific discipline help us to take into account the local situations. So agroecology, it's not a standard. It's not a standard. Like, for example, organic agriculture have some obligations. Huh? It's a standard with a certification, with a label, and we are able to sell at a higher price. But agroecology is an approach, an holistic approach, a systemic approach, pluridisciplinary approach, but systemic, focusing on interactions between all the elements of the agroecosystem. And they are not solution uniform, or standard, in order to resolve the problem of fertilization and weed and control of pests and disease. I'm not sure that I answer correctly.
Thank you very much. I think thank you. I think he answered most of the questions, and the issues were well addressed. If we go to the second round.
Thank you very much, Prof, for a very nice and informative presentation. In the beginning of the presentation, I learned that there's a need for designing and implementing monitoring of agro ecosystems. And we appreciate the fact that it is a complex scenario, so it requires quite complex ways of designing and managing. And so for us, being in the institution where we need to design research works, where we need to really design some monitoring systems, and agroecosystems being very complex, I would wish to understand how you do that, or what are the principles or basis for doing that. And also, towards the end, I also learned that you have a very good learning, cross-learning between the developed and the developing countries. And it's so interesting to understand what basis are you using in order to learn, based on the fact that these are two different contexts, having different weather, or having different environmental factors. So if we understood the basis for doing these things, I think could help us handle this complexity altogether. Thank you.
Thank you. I follow up with the next question. So from a landscape point of view, and particularly a biodiversity point of view, we're always debating between land sharing and land sparing. And you've been talking about intensifying our agriculture. So what is your perspective if we look at the entire landscape? Should we have some areas where there's intensive farming going on, or should we try to include our farming systems into the available, still healthy and functioning ecosystems, natural ecosystems?
The last question from that angle, please. Ah, okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Professor. I would like to know how can the agroecology be maintained if we say we have to specifically base on organic farming for sustainable development. Let's say there is a problem and we need an immediate solution. How can we go about? Let's say there is an outbreak of pests, maybe the Spodoptera exemptors, the fall armyworms, or maybe the grasshoppers, the elegant grasshoppers. How can we go about with those if we are to specifically base on the organic measures? And another question is the pesticides, or we should just integrate them through the integration of management of the pests. I would like to know, like, for agroecology purposes, should we completely ignore the pesticides, the industrial produced pesticides? And the last question is on the organic manures. There's this type of manure, I don't know all kinds, the night soil. I don't know if you're aware of that. So it's the feces of beings, the waste product of us human beings. How can we go about with those? I just need, like, what can you comment on that? Thank you.
Sorry, I think we are quite behind time. Maybe we can take two more, and then you respond to them for the last time. Maybe we add two more questions, and that will be it. Yeah, I saw one hand there, Rebecca, and another one, and four more. Okay, if there are four, then let him respond to this first. There might be too much. Prof, I think you respond to this, and then we take the last.
Okay, thank you for your questions. How can we design very complex farming systems? I think we have to take into account the scientific results of the agroecology. The scientific agroecology is obvious. We have to do more research in agroecology, focusing on ecosystem managed, implemented by farmers. I think it's obvious. We have to, in university, in institution, research institution, we have to focus more on the interactions of the different elements of ecosystems in maybe in agroecosystems. But it's true that we have to take into account the know-how, the knowledge of farmers. We say traditional farmers. Maybe we have to tolerant and resistant varieties of the past. So we have to combine a scientific approach from scientific and the results of empirical research of farmers along during many years. We don't have to oppose scientific research in agroecology and taking into account the result of selection, economic selection. Through the years, some farming systems have been selected because effective. We have to combine both. Of course, we have to imagine both farmers and scientific in the same research. We have to debate about how to implement new farming systems in line with agroecology. Land sharing, I think it's important to promote family farm and middle-sized farms, not with farmers too poor. Farmers too poor are not able to invest in agroecology, but not with very big farms. I would like to say, as capitalist farm, I think, are not in line with agroecology. Because if I were capitalist, I would like to invest capital, cash. I don't work. I contract wage laborers. And in order to maximize my rate of profit as a capitalist, what kind of farming system I will choose? Of course, I will invest in one equipment, and after that, in order to amortize this investment, of course, you will practice monoculture, mono-raising systems. It's not in line. It's profitable for the capitalist. It's not profitable for the general interest. So I think yes, in many countries, the access of land, the land sharing between different kinds of producers is a main problem. I worked a lot in Latin America. It's a very big problem, the inequity in the land share at the national level. Small farmers, which they not have access to cash in order to implement new farming system, too poor. And other, rich, very rich, they have access at all means, of course, but it's not their interest. Poor people, their interest in to intensify farming systems with the renewable resources free of charge, with intensive labor force, of course, because they are so poor that they are able to work a lot in order to maximize the yield per hectare, but they lack of cash in order to get equipment for that. They don't have cards, they don't have animals, and so on. So they are not able to produce manure and so on. You prefer middle-sized farmers. And big farmers, they have means of production, of course. They have cash, they have capital, sufficient capital in order to implement, to invest in agriculture. So they are not interested in agroecology, because agroecology is diversification. Agroecology is more work. We have to promote agriculture intensive and employment. But capitalists prefer, of course, with big farms, also invest in equipment and not in wage labor. Substitution, labor force for mechanization. It's not in line with general interest in many countries. The main example is Latin America in this case. We don't have to forget that new industrialized countries like Taiwan, like South Korea, both countries manage a real agrarian reform. They shared lands in order to get medium-sized farms in their countries. And after that, many farmers able to sell food in the urban area, able to buy, choose products of very necessary products industrialized. So scale economies in industry went after agrarian reform. In some countries, the problem is different because, for example, in West Africa, in many countries, share of land is a problem between pastoralists and sedentary crop farmers. And in this case, maybe they have to imagine new land sharing, new forms of land sharing. It's in some cases difficult between a pastoralist and crop farmers. But we can, in some countries, some solutions. But of course, it will be negotiations, not only state decisions, but negotiations between the two stakeholders, of course. Without negotiation with both, I think we can get result. Organic farm, and we have to pay to get organic products. It's true that organic farming with certification, with labelization, some consumers pay more in order to get sanitary food with good sanitary quality. So they pay more, but the problem is why organic farmers would be for rich persons and the endocrine disruptor for poor. I think it's not equity. So I think we have maybe to design agricultural policies able to pay farmers for their environmental services. Farmers are able to sequester carbon. It's in line with the decision of humanity reducing greenhouse emission. So we pay. They try to put new leguminous in order to sequester nitrogen in humus to produce protein without using biofuel. So it's in line with the general interest. Well, we pay. That means in Europe, for example, many farmers are subsidized. But I would propose that they are not subsidized. They are paid, but for an interest and for the general interest. And in many countries, maybe the cooperation with other countries may maybe help governments to pay farmers for their environmental services, sequestration of carbon, leguminous, ecological infrastructure in order to raise auxiliary insects and so on. Why not? Of course, I'm sorry, it's a very political problem, and I don't have to put my opinion in your problems, of course, you imagine. So,
thank you very much, Professor, for the very informative answers. Ladies and gentlemen, participants, brothers, sisters, you have to excuse me because we have another conference starting exactly at 2. And I would request those still with questions, Professor is still around, you can interact during lunch or anywhere around, because otherwise these agroecologically conferenced events that are actually 2 in 1 will fail to conduct the next one. So please, I'll beg that we stop here for now, and I'll request only 5 minutes for votes of thanks that would come from the Deputy Center Leader of CREATES, which are the co-organizers of this conference, to give a vote of thanks. But before that, I would like to thank Professor Dumifier. Did I get this right?
Yes. Nice.
Monsieur Dumifier, thank you very much for the knowledge, and actually we got the knowledge. Everybody is full of knowledge, including myself. Thank you very much. Please, a hand of applause, and thanks to Professor. Please.
Asante sana.
Professor Anna, please, karibu for the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kelvin. And yes, again, dear honorable excellencies of the embassies, dear acting VC, dear Mark, thank you so much for coming, and also IDP for approaching us to host this conference. This was really, really a pleasure to learn so much about agroecology and to be able also to show a little bit what we are doing here at Nelson Mandela. So we think we're not too far off the line of trying to feed the world with agroecology. So I think what we are doing in our Center of Excellence, which is called CREATES, you're welcome to look at the booths outside, downstairs, but also up here. These are our activities. You've heard what some of the students are doing. Also our new incubation center, where we're trying to actually promote these agroecological products, is very big to our heart, and any kind of financial, emotional, whatever support you can provide, we're very, very happy to receive that. Again, thank you all for your physical presence, but also thank you all for your virtual presence. We were very happy to have a live stream to be able to radiate this message by Professor Dufumier to the world, at least to the African region, if not even further abroad. So thank you all for coming. Also thank you very much, Kelvin, for guiding us through this very important conference. Thank you for keeping the time, for being here. There is free lunch now for all the participants, so you can refresh yourselves with a very good lunch. And please grab Mark as long as he's here and interact with him, because all of us, we're the future of Tanzania, of Africa, of the region. We feed the world with agroecology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Center Director. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to an end of this particular event. And I would request, as Anna said, that we are going for lunch now. But I request, as you walk out through that door, you'll get a coupon, and that will take you to where the lunch is. So thank you again, and I wish you a good afternoon.